This is an extremely disturbing story to hear. In the future, I'll show you real GoPro footage from the moment everything went wrong. What you're about to hear is terrifying. On February 25th, 2022, at 5:30 in the morning, a father of three named Christopher Budhram left his home on the Caribbean islands for work. Christopher had been a professional scuba diver for over 10 years. His job involved inspecting underwater structures, welding, and transporting equipment beneath the sea. 8 months earlier, Christopher had secured a position at an oil and gas company called Perrier Fuel, located just 2 minutes from his home. His role there was to maintain underwater oil pipelines used to transport oil from ships to land. One of Perrier Fuel's pipelines was U-shaped. Both ends rose vertically out of the water, connected by a 1,200-foot pipeline resting on the seabed at a depth of about 60 feet. One vertical section stood far offshore, where ships offloaded oil. The oil then flowed through the seabed pipeline to the second vertical section closer to land, where it was transferred for processing. That morning, Christopher learned he and his team were scheduled to dive for pipeline maintenance. The pipeline assigned to them was unusual. It was called Berth Number 6. Unlike other pipelines, this one had been shut down since 2018 and sealed for nearly 4 years. To close it, workers had sealed both vertical openings with foam-like cushions, pumping air inside to make them airtight. The offshore opening remained above water, but the landside opening had been submerged, so passing ships wouldn't be obstructed. Attached to that submerged section was a large habitat chamber, a structure containing breathable air. This habitat allowing divers to enter, remove their gear, and work in an air-filled space beneath the sea. That day's task was simple: reactivate the pipeline by releasing the air trapped inside the sealing cushions. Christopher was diving with 4 colleagues: Kazim, Yusuf, Faisal, and Rishi, all experienced divers and close friends. They suited up, traveled by boat, and descended directly into the habitat. Once inside, they climbed onto the platform, removed their scuba gear, and began working. Their job was to open a lever that would release the air from the foam seal, but the lever was jammed. They didn't have a wrench. Kazim volunteered to surface and retrieve one. He put his gear back on, returned to the boat, grabbed the wrench, and dove back down into the habitat. As Kazim bent down and finally forced the lever open, everything went wrong. The moment the seal broke, low-pressure air inside the 1,200-foot pipeline met the high-pressure air trapped inside the habitat. Physics took over instantly. Air rushed from high pressure to low pressure, creating what became one of the most powerful vacuums imaginable. In less than a second, everything was sucked into the pipeline. All the air, all the equipment, and all 5 men. Even seawater was dragged in. None of them were wearing scuba gear. They were violently pulled through the vertical section and launched into the narrow pipeline like bullets. The pipe was only 2.5 feet wide, barely enough for their shoulders. It was pitch black. They couldn't see, couldn't breathe, and had no idea what had happened. After some distance, the pressure equalized. The vacuum stopped. The water settled. By sheer luck, the men came to rest at a slight bend in the pipe, where a small air pocket remained. They were trapped. Oil and water surrounded them. Heavy equipment crushed against their bodies. Many of them were injured with broken bones. They screamed, realizing they were all inside the pipe. A camera had recorded everything, from the moment the lever turned to the instant they vanished. Christopher was closest to the entry point. He knew that survival meant going back the way they came. There was only one way to move, pushing with their legs. They stacked themselves, feet on shoulders, and slowly began crawling back, with Christopher leading. They knew time was running out. The air was limited, and they didn't know if more water would flood the pipe. Eventually, they reached a fully flooded section. No one knew how long it was. If they entered it, they would either reach another air pocket or drown. Christopher and Faisal prepared themselves mentally. Despite the others begging them to stop, they knew someone had to reach the surface for help. Holding their breath together, they entered the darkness. Miraculously, the flooded section was short. They surfaced into another air pocket, where they found 2 scuba tanks. Christopher handed one to Faisal. Now, with air, they pressed on. For hours, they dragged themselves through flooded sections of the pipe, unsure how much oxygen remained. Then, suddenly, Christopher's tank struck twisted metal. He had reached the vertical section. The habitat was above him. With immense effort, Christopher turned himself upside down and surfaced into the vertical chamber. But the water level was too high for him to escape. It was like being trapped inside a deep well. A hanging chain saved him. Rescue divers finally arrived and pulled Christopher to the surface. Coast guards and emergency teams were already there. Christopher begged them, screaming that his friends were alive, trapped in air pockets, waiting to be saved. The authorities refused. They said it was too dangerous. Desperate, Christopher tried to jump back into the water himself. He was restrained and taken to the hospital. For 2 more days, the remaining 4 men remained trapped, banging on the pipe, hoping someone would hear them. On February 27th, the knocking stopped. All 4 men died inside the pipeline. Later, their bodies were recovered. Now, I'll show you the moment Kazim enters the habitat holding the wrench. The video suddenly cuts to black, because in that exact instant, they were pulled into the pipe. With this video, justice can only be done in one way. That is to show that scary video related to this incident. And I have shown in this video. I highly recommend watching that as well. Until then, let's meet again in the deep. Thanks for watching.